What's up, man?
Hey, cool. Spectacular co-host. So let me just tell you who is here. We have world-renowned beer connoisseur Kevin Spear.
Hi, guys.
And if you've been to my basement, this is the legend that made it happen. And we're going to be doing beer and cookie pairings today. And not just any beer and just not just any cookies. But I wanted to talk about Derek. We met up just recently in NFT NYC. I was at NFT NYC this year. Place was empty, comparatively speaking. I walk in, and here's what's great about an empty conference for NFTs. 2 years ago, everybody was there. They were funded. They were building nothing. This year, nobody's there. Everybody there is making money, is not getting investments, and is kicking. So I was like, great. I walked from booth to booth talking to winners this time and not like hopers. How great is that? So then I come up to Derek and I see these cookies, and he had a chef there. We're doing cookie tastings and they were cutting them up into real small pieces.
Yeah, so we are a luxury cookie company. Really wanted to get into the NFT space. We did a collaboration initially with the Pudgy Penguins. Absolutely crushed. We wanted to stick out like a sore thumb. We did. We're giving away cookies at an NFT conference, teaching people how to do corporate gifting. Honestly, just met some really awesome people. First real event of the year, being myself a Pudgy holder. It was a great place to be.
Now, before the Pudgy Penguins, before the NFT NYC event, you're already doing cookies. This is not like a new venture. It's not VC backed. It's not going to the moon. You're on Earth.
We are on Earth. Yes, they're about a 3-year-old company, mostly direct-to-consumer business. It's the highest-end cookie on the market. All cookies are 3 different proprietary processes. They're the best in the world, and we'll stand behind it. But it's really the experience behind the cookies, and so hopefully they're awesome.
Yes, and I also was talking with Derek, and this is a previous episode that we had on this show, was board bagels. So this is a theme. I call it confections. Even though these are bagels, these are confections with premium branding. What does that mean? So it's like, we're just charging more money for food. No, we're doing limited supply of food. We're doing fancy stuff. We're turning food into an experience, and then we're connecting it with a community, which is what everybody wants to do, but just a couple of people are actually doing it. So I immediately saw the parallels. People get excited about coffee, bagels, cookies, pies, ice cream. They're magical things, right? So milk it, right? Like, make limited drops, make parties out of this, have exclusive email sign-up lists, have secret locations once a week, like do all that, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's our model. We started off with limited edition drops once a week, built an email list, would sell out within seconds, and we ran with that model for the first couple of years. And, now we have evergreen products. We're looking to build our first brick and mortar store next year in New York. So yeah, exciting time for us.
Awesome. I'd love to just open this box up. So we've got the cutters here. Zoom in real big. So this is a beast.
This box is every bit as exciting as when I would get somebody sending me beer from across the country or across the world, and sometimes you know what's in it, sometimes you don't, and always a great experience. That's the first box coming out. Is that looks like a reasonable amount of cookies, but it's not the only in the box, because there's also another box with an unreasonable looking amount of cookies and another one of those. So 2 unreasonable amounts and a reasonable amount on top of each other. We might be here through dinner and past happy hour.
Yeah. This is happy hour. So if you can't see it, on this big box, on the ridiculous box, we have swipe right for cookies. I do like how the big box is on brand too.
It's everything we do. We want to make sure it's of the highest quality. So if we're sending multiple boxes, that's going to be completely branded. So, if we send out a 5-pack of boxes, it'll come with that shipper that you guys got. But most of our boxes are in those individual dozens, which is the kind of big box that is in there. So that's our core collection. That's our main one. And we sent some other flavors as well. So I told the kitchen to send what we had.
Awesome.
Now you are dropping a secret because I did not tell Kevin how many cookies were inside. And he was like, how fancy are these cookies?
Yeah, I guessed there was either going to be somewhere around 200 or 5, and I didn't think there was an in between.
So this one did have the quick release tab, for instant gratification. But I do want to note that these boxes are different. And the little box and the big box do have different graphics. We had these scissors, but we don't need them. We don't need them yet.
Yeah, I mean, with the cool pull tabs, that really aren't necessary. I'm always sort of a purist at heart, even though I like exploring and experimenting. Variety is the spice of life is absolutely a mantra, but I always like to start with the less out there, right? The less out there, the less experimental. So, to harken back to the beer idea, if I've got a stout and a barrel-aged stout, I'll start with the stout and then have the barrel-aged stout to kind of build upon. So that's kind of why I picked the core box, I think you said it was called. Open the damn box, so we shall.
So on this box, we've got the black printing, but it also has the black, the shine on top of that. We got a magnetic close on the box. Let's go.
Yeah. So individually packed, better than sex cookies, which, been married for a while. I guess I'm not going to argue until I taste it.
Now, there are instructions on the back. So there are two.
I was assuming that they started with tear open and they continue to say eat. Is there anything else in there?
Well, there is a recommended temperature.
There is for warm cookies, recommended cutting in fourths. So Will's walking away with one of them, and I've got another here. Pretty sizable, pretty hefty chocolate chip cookie. Looks like it's got some sea salt on top. Dark chocolate, rich chocolate, and milk chocolate. Chips and chunks. Caramelized butter-based dough. And a slight hint of coffee. Maldon sea salt, just a pinch. I gotta say, if there's Maldon salt, I'm hoping for some crunch in the cookie along with those chocolate chunks.
I do have a question for Derek, because I have a question for Derek, not for you.
Yeah.
Cheers, dude.
Yeah. Hi, yes.
Well, these eatables are, I guess it is new wave in the NFTs. I don't know. If you're the second person that I'm seeing doing something like this, have you ever met with the Jeremy Fall? He's also doing eatables and special dinner events for his NFT collectors.
BJ, we got to tell you what we're eating. This is a salty,
Tell me which one it is.
peanut buttery, chocolatey cookie, and it's got the big chunks, which I love because it lays on your tongue and just sits there while you're eating it.
Yeah, a couple microseconds is definitely pretty clutch on that.
I love everything about peanut butter.
So I'm picking up peanut butter as a texture that it's got that
Right.
creamy, sticky, stick to the roof of your mouth feel from the chocolate. But I don't think I saw peanut butter in the ingredients, technically.
I'm feeling it, but I'm not, what is... Maybe it's like that,
Is yours different one than mine?
it's like brown sugar and salt is like that gritty... I like how it lays on your tongue and just sits there. Versus Grey Mom's Betty Crocker cookies, which are just all chocolate and gooey, but not
Right. I think it might be how buttery they are. Between that and the melty chocolate kind of mixes together for that extra thickness. It's a pretty stellar cookie.
So they got 010184, so there's a secret code number on the front.
1:24 a.m. on the 1st of January 2022.
Okay.
84 minutes in, that could be it.
This is an NFT show too, so we do like to look at traceability and a higher quality of consumer products than we're used to. So I'm going to tell you everything that's on and not on this label. So it's got the great labeling. It's got better than sex. It's got word. It's got typography. It's not just letters. It's actually art on the front. That counts as art. It's not just letters, right?
I count about 5 different fonts. That's not wildly different ones. It's not confusing to the eye, but it kind of breaks up. Kind of provides some contrast as you're reading top to bottom.
It's cover art. This is cover art, so we like that. We like CDs with cover art. We like cookies with cover art. So it tells you the location of it says handmade Los Angeles.
Does it plastic?
Yep, this is plastic, normal plastic. It doesn't say what kind of recyclable plastic. On the back, it has a story. I'm not going to read the whole story, but this is important. The story sells everything. When I saw Beeple's art, he's selling art for ridiculous prices. The stories are multiple paragraphs. I think one paragraph for a cookie is appropriate. On the back, it says ingredients, but the word ingredients is actually crossed out. It says 3 variations of chocolate, and then it's got chocolate, chocolate, chocolate. That type of wording is not kosher under FDA labeling guidelines. You can't do that. There's no, these are not individually labeled for resale, but it doesn't say not individually labeled for resale, so it's missing that. I'd like to know how much sugar and how much carbs a cookie is. There's 6, so I could house, if Kevin wasn't here, I could house this. Theoretically, if you're giving somebody too much sugar than they should eat in one day, you're supposed to warn them. Especially in South America, that's a law. Not a law in the US, but it is for sodium. So I would like to see how much sugar and carbs or whatever is there.
And hey, if we're adding salt to a cookie, salt too. I mean,
yeah.
Some people are more sensitive to it. As you mentioned, there's a law about if there, depending on how much of it there is. I would actually say that probably that kind of harkens back to the fact that the ingredients where it is crossed out, that maybe this isn't really intended to be a nutritionally labeled ingredients list. And while it does have a contains for allergens, which is a little bit more on the official side, the fact that half of the ingredients list is added words that aren't an actual ingredient, an ingredients list, as you were mentioning, have some pretty strict guidelines. So a mix of both chips and chunks for textural variation. Great information. I think it's interesting to read about, but you would never have that on like the ingredients list that you get when you pick up a package at the grocery store. So I'm going to guess that that's why ingredients is crossed off, and also why as you mentioned, it's missing the not labeled for individual sale line. But I'm going to say that somewhere else in the packaging is probably a more official ingredients list to make that work.
Good observation. There's 6 in there. They're all the same. So I also want to know if the other boxes are all the same. We're going to open all the boxes anyway. Fucking.
Don't get me wrong. I'll sit here and eat half of a box of 6 chocolate chip cookies and go home a very happy man.
Yeah.
But I have a hunch that we were going to do not just that.
No, we also want some beers. So do we want to touch all the cookies first, or I know typically don't mix, so we can also touch all the cookies first.
Funny enough, I mean, as much as I'm a big beer guy, it's sort of a quirk of my personality that I tend not to do a lot of beer while eating food, or eating food while drinking a beer. I'll kind of leave my beer off to the side, have a water with my food, then come back to the beer. With that said, I am no stranger to beer pairings. So if what we're looking to do is combine some flavors, we can definitely do that. And I can get deep into that. I can lead beer tastings with food and beverage pairings. Fair enough. Let's see what's in the box.
Yeah.
So another quick pull tab. Some more cool art on the inside of the box. Now the smaller box, again, in this case, unlike the outer packaging, same, just a bigger size. But to me, the much more understated look, that goes well.
Yeah,
So this box is definitely not all one the same. Now we do start off with the same number 1, and then each bag is actually individually numbered for what type of cookie it corresponds to. So 2, 3, 4, all the way up to number 12. So this is actually a mix of 12 different cookies. So we've got the James Dean and Oreo milkshake, a Netflix and Crunch Cinnamon Toast Crunch, and then 9 more we haven't talked about. And I don't know how long you're going to be here, but
got some work to do.
11 more quarter cookies is a pretty good start to dinner to me.
Now this one's also got a whole book
For that, but we're not going to read the 40 pages and then enjoy them.
This is a skimmer. Like, this is a... Are we pairing these, or are we...
We sure can if you want. You want to go grab the first beer?
So we'll start with the lambic.
Yeah, bookends are the top-notch beers, and the bomb is in the middle. Go from there. All right, so the first beer we brought out is Fonteinen Oude Kriek. This is a cherry lambic beer. It's been aged for... so it's unfiltered beer. 35% of it is made up of cherries, and the rest is... Oftentimes, lambic is made into what's called a goose style, which is very similar to this minus the fruit, and then it's a blend of differently aged beers. This, if I'm not mistaken, is just 3-year-old aged beer when they put it in the bottle. And that was done in July of 2015, so almost 9 years ago. Blueberries and cherries go pretty well together, so a blueberry muffin cookie would probably be a good bet. Banana cream pie might also work with something fruity and tart. Birthday cake is probably a pretty good open palette that we can do with just about anything. That one is a lemon bar cookie. So I would actually say let's do that one with sour lambic. Or no, you know what? Let's stick with blueberry with cherries. We'll keep the the fruity with fruity. And the lemon, I think, might go well with one of those next two beers that are still going to be tart, but aren't specifically fruited. So, here's your glass.
Yeah.
So I would suggest we do the blueberry muffin number 9. Ingredients again is crossed out with wild blueberries from Maine or somewhere near Maine. Those same wild blueberries are made into a puree and of course streusel, crafted on Drury Lane, directly across from the Muffin Man's headquarters. You know, I'm going to venture out and say that that's not the government-approved ingredients list again, but it is certainly evokes some fun imagery for tasting a cookie.
So are we going to do this hot or cold?
They all.
Now the back of them all have the same.
But I can't imagine that a warm cookie is ever a totally bad thing. I'm just guessing that some of them might be better suited to it than others.
Yeah, like the chocolate. That one.
Yeah, that one for sure. But I could also see, red velvet. It might not matter too much. So there's the. I'm trying to get this up to the camera without making a mess on the electronics. So it definitely looks a lot like the top of a blueberry muffin. But if you ever handed me just the top of a blueberry muffin that was this heavy, I would wonder what else you put in it. So a cookie it certainly is. Did you want to go get that in the microwave for 15? Yeah. Lambic beer is a pretty interesting style of beer in that it is fermented in an open rather than a closed style. So usually if you think of a brewery, think of the big, huge steel tanks. Once the beer is brewed, it goes right into that tank. Yeast is thrown into the tank and it's all sealed up for the yeast to do its job and turn it into beer. With lambic, however, instead of adding yeast and putting it into a big closed container, they use what's called a cool ship, which is essentially a table with a 2-inch lip on it, but it's a room-sized table that they fill that cavity with beer, huge amount of surface area, and then they just open the windows and come back tomorrow. And the yeast that just naturally floats around in the air, along with a couple other fermenting agents, just kind of land on the surface of all that liquid, and then they transfer it into barrels for a fermenting process, having only had the yeast natural to the air added to it. So it's a very unique way of making beer, and it turns out some of the best beer in the world. Blueberry muffin cookie.
It's in crummy.
Yeah, that streusel's looking good.
I've never had a cookie like this. This is definitely a pie.
Yeah, that is something else. But it's got the size and shape of a cookie. Almost like a brownie kind of texture to it. Not super fudgy brownies, but like it's more like a brownie in terms of how...
Yeah, I like how the middle layer horizontally is totally different than the outside. Mm-hmm. A little gooey, and then it's got that thick, and see it. I like when you slice it, you really get a nice geology of it.
So you can almost kind of see that gooey internal side from the little bit of crispy crunchity out on the outside. Yeah, that does go together really well. Sour beer, sweet cookie, 2 different kinds of a stone fruit and a berry. But if we had 3 more of that, we could just be done now.
We had a pizza boy down there, which is like a pallet blaster, which is great. I was too scared to take it out.
Actually, it's funny. The pallet blaster ones I actually find to be a little better for pairing with food because they're going to bring more to the table, and it might need to be like a slower course.
Well, that was
last cookie.
Yeah. Welcome back.
Awesome. I mean, yeah, you guys hit the nail on the head there with the ingredients. Yeah, it's completely branding. All the ingredients are online. You can check out, the full ingredient list and nutrition, all that stuff. But everything in the box is just completely branded too.
So on the QR code where it says scan me, I know this is legal, but I would even put scan me for ingredients and nutritional information. Yeah, so I noticed that the QR code for 2 different cookies is the same, which is also something I don't like. Because there's no reason that each one of these cookies couldn't have a web page.
The box that you guys have is our main box, our core collection, the 1 through 12.
Cool.
You'll have all of our best hits in there. My personal favorite is Donkey Kong. I think that one will pair well with some of the stuff you got on the docket for today.
Nice.
Yeah, I was thinking for that with Featherwalker. I'm actually starting, and since there's 6 beers and 12 cookies, we pretty much should be working on 2 to 1.
I noticed how you discount beer in the middle. You've already assumed.
So one of the beers in the set is one that the batch of beer that got brewed got infected, which basically means that those souring bacteria I was talking about with the lambic, where that's what you want in the beer, if it's a beer that you're not looking for that, it can kind of ruin the experience of the beer. It doesn't make it unhealthy. It can't make you sick. An infected beer isn't an infection like, an ear infection. It just means that the beer isn't going to taste maybe wheelbarrowed out. While I work on opening and pouring a beer, do you want to put the next one in a microwave with 2 cookies ready to go? So the next beer we're doing is from a local brewery in our neighborhood called Forest and Maine. They are in Ambler, Pennsylvania. This particular one is a dry hopped and barrel aged saison. So when they were brewing it, they added hops not just during the brewing process, but during the fermenting process. That helps add a lot of the hoppy flavor without increasing the bitterness of the beer. It's from 2016. So again, about an 8-year-old bottle of beer. So it's not going to have a lot of that hoppiness anymore, but it is going to have developed nicely in the bottle from all of that age and from already being kind of a funky sort of a beer to begin with. Saison is a Belgian style originally, really just is, German Dutch for the word season. It was a farmer's beer. And after coming over to the States and kind of making a splash, it has really developed into a different kind of style that tends much more often to be tart, like this one's likely to be, than the original that was a little bit more just estery and very flavorful, but not really tart all that often. We'll just got us a couple more cookies heated up. We went with the, what was that, banana cream pie and lemon tart? Or Donkey Kong. Well, so they have names, but they also have descriptions. So the Donkey Kong is the banana cream pie.
Yeah.
Donkey Kong bananas. And then When Life Gives You Lemons is the lemon tart or lemon bar cookie. So while I'm cutting up these 2 cookies, I noticed that the how we were talking about that dense, almost gooiness, and it seems like the Donkey Kong seems to have that a little extra. On the other hand, the lemon bar seems to be a little less of that, or maybe it's just that I was cutting through this crunchy top that it's got on it. Let's see here.
So if there wasn't any confusion, this is not a paid product placement, and I do not need to put the disclosure box on YouTube. I'll tell you the story about how this happened. Derek is just such a cool guy that we were talking, and I told him what I do and why I'm interested in his real product and not just a fake, they call them PFP, they're profile photos. I'm like, okay, well, how can I help you out? Give me a bunch of these cookies. I'll go throw them upstairs and give me your business cards and I'll throw them around. He says, great, thanks. I appreciate you passing the cookies around because he's manning the booth. And he says, hey, give me your card. I'll send you food boxes to your house. Yeah, these cookies are actually very expensive. So these boxes go for about $140 each for the small one. I have no idea what the big ones go for. So when I told Kevin the retail value of these cookies, that's when he said, God, I hope there's more than 5.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as you say something is ultra premium, which these absolutely are, it just sort of brings up like just what degree of ultra. Like, are we talking about like you probably need to have a pet tiger to buy these, or are we talking about like you're not going to just find it at every strip center? And this is absolutely in that latter category. And with that said, you don't need to have a tiger to be able to afford a cookie, but they're absolutely top notch.
Lemon meringue cookie?
Lemon bar.
When Life Gives You Lemons?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, super lemony. Like, I mean, really, really vibrant lemon flavor. And my guess from while cutting it is pretty accurate that there is still a little bit of that kind of gooiness in the middle, but it's a little bit more fully baked in the sense that it's a little bit crunchier on the outside than the other ones were.
To be honest, I think you miss out if you don't cut the cookie. If you're not looking at it, if you're just like,
Yeah, I can get with that. Yeah, that pairing knocks it out of the park too. That tart saison and the tartness of the lemons complement each other really well. Again, the cookie has a lot more sweetness than the beer, but the beer has a little bit more complexity. As good as the lemon flavor is, and I'm not saying it's one note by any means, but the beer is a very complex flavor experience by comparison. So you get the complexity on one side and you get the sweetness on the other. It goes really well together.
The cookie's more about the texture in the lemon than it is about the rainbow.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the lemon is very much the star. Like I said, it's a really vibrant, fresh lemon flavor. It's not like, lemon meringue pie is a very lemony flavor too.
Yeah,
but in a very different kind of way. It's much more like, oh, that's what lemons are supposed to taste like. This is what lemons actually taste like. Like if you were like juicing lemons and have too much on your finger and lick it off, that's like it's that very visceral lemon flavor that you only get from fresh lemons. So that is a stellar cookie. Yeah, Donkey Kong is now this one again, as I was guessing from how it felt to cut it, gooey all the way through. Looks like there's some marshmallow in the middle, maybe.
Yeah, don't bother reading. You can read it.
Banana cream pie. So yeah, marshmallows, thick pudding, extra thick ivory white chocolate, crispy, never soggy vanilla wafers, banana, like the actual banana, not the fake kind that our chemists will have to lie about years down the road. We don't even have chemists.
To be honest, I don't like this as much as the first cookie. And I do like Rocky Road. I do like me some chocolate with all the vanilla and all of the marshmallow in it and the rockiness. And this, for me, is more... It's actually less flavors than that.
I get what you mean. And this harkens back kind of that first cookie where I was describing as kind of being like a brownie texture. It's very much like a blondie. Like if you made a banana blondie. Derek, I know you hopped off, but I don't know, buddy. Your top choice isn't the favorite in this room.
And it is great to pair it because I like to have a baseline. I like to always, have something else against it. I like that we're doing the cookies in pairs.
Yeah.
Because if I was just having that cookie by itself, it actually would have been great.
Funny enough, yeah, right. By itself, that'd be, what that would be a really good thing to do with that would be a banana split ice cream brownie sundae monster. Yeah. Like get like a cookie like that, scoop of ice cream, half a banana around it, maybe a little bit of chocolate syrup. Like that would be the absolute best dessert I've ever had. Level of good. Just like that lemon cookie with this beer, just what you put with things matters a lot. And that cookie needs some stuff around it where that lemon cookie is just, great all by itself. Oh, right. Magical Brettanomyces tour. Yeah. Now, this has a wax top. So I picked out the birthday cake one for this because that's another neutral, not chocolatey, not cinnamon kind of flavor. This is an African strain of Brettanomyces. The series that they did for this one was a few different experiments on how Brettanomyces would affect the beer. But I think I forgot to do a presentation of the... But this was the Forest of Maine beer that I was talking about. It's called Featherwalker. They've always had very interesting bottle art. It's also a fairly low ABV beer, which when you have something like Brettanomyces is not a problem for aging, but it does mean that it's not going to have as much flavor. It's not going to have as much going on. So I was suggesting that we do the birthday cake once. That flavor reminds me of the homemade like whipped cream topping that they do at Cold Stone.
Or like when you smell it first, it smells just like a party.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot of vanilla, but it's also a lot of sweet milk.
Yeah.
The moment of truth for today's activity is, how does that go with a funky Brettanomyces beer?
Not bad.
I gotta say that's better than I expected.
Yeah, I mean, I was imagining a blonde beer before I put the beer into my face and thinking that would be what this wants. But this is actually doesn't lay on your palate and just...
Right. Yeah, the dryness of the beer, which, for the wine connoisseurs in the crowd, dryness in a beverage makes a lot of sense, but for most people that might not. But in this case, it really does have a tangible drying effect that the sweetness of the cookie kind of needs.
Yeah. When you're drinking beers, it's not often that you are going into these directions with your palate.
No, that's very true. Most of the beer tastings I've done have not been over the dessert course. They've been over, appetizers or, different type of beer with whatever meat I'm going to have for dinner or things like that. It still winds up fitting the format really well. I don't know if this is legal. What I kind of want to do is go back to this guy with a different beer.
As a fun, I want you to keep this away from your nose while you're opening it.
Well, I was right away. Yeah. More importantly than my nose is your electronics and floor.
Well, you're smelling.
I'm not smelling. I'm just looking. It's not gushing, which means that it's possibly not infected at all. Those two things don't have to go hand in hand. You can definitely still get some sour flavors even without it having that gush reaction. But you always have to be careful to ward against that reaction in case it does come.
Sourer than intended, but not an explosion.
Right. Yeah. No, it definitely is an infected beer. It definitely has some sourness, but it's not so much so that it's overwhelmingly unpleasant. That's still premium bourbon that we're talking about.
I'm still tasting the bourbon. I'm still tasting it.
Yeah. Right. The bourbon definitely comes through. If you look hard enough, the roasty stout notes come through. I do not get any maple syrup at all. And actually, as it warms up a bit, I'm starting to pick up even a little bit of the maple. It's right at the top of the palate, right up front, and then it vanishes as quick as it was there. But But that last sip, I definitely got some of it. So I mean, you can tell they definitely put some in there. But even that water was sour. Ooh. Actually, it was probably just the beer in my mustache, but nevertheless, it was a sip of water that tasted sour, and that wasn't fun. At least when it's sour beer, I can expect it coming. Sour water, I was not prepared for.
I've never had Baltic beers that were the actual Baltic. I guess
as you might know, the term porter for beer was originally created with ship porters. It was their style of choice. It was darker and roastier, a little heavier than the milds and bitters that they were drinking in pubs. So when they were working on the docks in the cold, it would kind of keep them a little warmer. And then a stout is a stout porter originally. Stout originally being an adjective rather than the noun, just to describe an extra strong porter or a heavier, weightier porter. So this is the label for the Moody Tongue. Caramelized chocolate churro Baltic porter. Much of what I had. So this is one of the higher ABV beers we have for the day. That is a very interesting flavor.
Yeah, I'm like...
That also kind of, there's a little bit of a sourness to it. And I mean, even in a beer that isn't like, oh yeah, that batch went wrong. I mean, this is also, again, from 2016, so it's still like an 8-year-old bottle.
Well, the good news is we have another Baltic porter.
Yeah.
Framinghammer.
Now, this is barrel-aged Framinghammer. This is from Jack's Abbey Brewing up in Massachusetts. It's, again, it's aged in whiskey barrels. It's a Baltic porter like the one we were just talking about, only this is from a brewery that only does lagers. Jack's Abbey is pretty well known in the beer world for doing every kind of lager you can think of. They have an Imperial Pale Lager, India Pale Lager, and then they have an Imperial version of it. There's an India Pale Lager, which is basically what you would think of as being an IPA, only it's made with a lagering process. And the difference is whether you use yeast that eats sugars up at the top of the fermenting or down at the bottom. Ales ferment at the bottom. Lagers ferment are top fermenting beers and also tend to ferment at a much colder temperature as well.